Now, for more on all of this, we're pleased to be joined by the co-chair of the Donald Trump campaign for Louisiana, Jeff Crouere. Jeff's also the co-author of the timely new book, America's Last Chance. And joining us via Skype from Michigan, my old colleague on Capitol Hill, former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Pete Hoekstra. Pete's also the author of Architects of Disaster, The Destruction of Libya. Today, Pete's the president of Hoekstra Global Strategies. Gents, as always, we thank you for your time here on Newsmax Prime. Now, guys, you know at the end of car commercials, when they're reading like 78 RPM with all these numbers, I'm not going to go that fast, but I want to make sure people understand what we're talking about here. According to our parent website, Newsmax.com, at least 85 of 154 people from private interest who met or had phone conversations scheduled with Mrs. Clinton while she was Secretary of State donated to her family charity or pledged commitments to its international programs that, according to the AP, those 85 donors contributed as much as $156 million. At least 40 donated more than $100K, 20 gave more than $1 million. Hey, Petey, isn't this classic pay to play?
It sure looks like it, JD, and I think the most powerful thing here, obviously it's being reported by Newsmax, but the initial study was done by the AP, and they've been trying to get this information for the last 3 years. They were, they were held up by the State Department, no surprise, but the numbers are startling, the relationships, but overall the size, $150-some million from 85 people. You put that with the 16 governments that she met with that contributed over $170 million. You know, we're well over we're north of 300 million. This looks really, really ugly. And when you start peeling the layers back, I think it will be really ugly.
Now, Jeff, I served with some capable guys from Louisiana and also some guys who, well, they had their fingers in the cookie jar, so to speak. So you know politics from both sides. You're a straight-up honest guy. Your take on pay to play?
She reminds me of some of the corrupt Louisiana politicians we see down here, JD, and they went to prison. That's where she belongs, in prison. And I think this was all a scam. I think she was using the position of Secretary of State to enrich herself through the foundation. All of this can't be by coincidence. I mean, we're talking about big money. We're talking about some nasty players here. We're talking about using her position to shepherd dollars toward the foundation. And I have got no faith, JD, in the Justice Department. Unfortunately, under Loretta Lynch, Trump is right. We need a special prosecutor.
Well, let's talk more about that. Donald Trump, as we mentioned earlier, last night on the stump in Akron, Ohio, really went after the Clinton Foundation, asking for a special prosecutor. Now, he laid out the case. Let's listen to Mr. Trump from that rally in Akron, Ohio last night.
This is in front of the State Department. And long before that, you should have seen what they were doing in Arkansas. Same old story, folks. The amounts involved, the favors done, and the significant number of times it was done require an expedited investigation by a special prosecutor immediately.
And I'll add one more time for emphasis, immediately. But Pete, with Mr. Obama in the Oval Office, there's not going to be a special prosecutor.
There will not be a special prosecutor. Hillary Clinton has been protected by this State Department, by this Justice Department, and by this president, all for this election campaign in 2016. Finally, some of the media is taking a look at this, and it's going, quote unquote, mainstream media. It's going to be a problem for her, but for the American people to believe that we will actually have the answers before the election, it will not happen. We won't have the answer on the 15,000 emails. They have successfully, pushed all of these potential corrupt activities beyond the November election.
Hey, Jeff, I'm going to switch topics now because you had a visitor to your state as President Obama finally put down his golf clubs and made his way to the Bayou State to tour that flood damage there. But what's amazing is there's the president, and he turns it into a political visit for all intents and purposes by going after Donald Trump. Here's what he had to say.
This is not a one-off. This is not a photo op issue. This is how do you make sure that a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, people still are getting the help that they need.
Now, it's worth noting that Mr. Trump wasted no time in reacting to the president's comments. Mr. Trump tweets out the following: President Obama should have gone to Louisiana days ago instead of golfing. Too little, too late. Jeff, as we acknowledge your co-chair of the Louisiana Trump campaign, did your favorite candidate come out looking more presidential?
Boy, did he, JD. He came down bearing gifts. He had a major gift for a church down in Louisiana. He brought an 18-wheeler full of supplies. He came down early. And of course, Barack Obama wouldn't even stop his vacation. There's a lot of anger toward Barack Obama in Louisiana. And it's reminiscent, JD, of how he acted after the oil spill back in 2010. Very tardy response to the real crisis down here in Louisiana. There's a suspicion that he didn't act very quickly because we're a red state. We're not a state with a lot of Obama supporters, and he just gave us very shoddy treatment. And Donald Trump really scored some major points, and there was a lot of happy people to see him the other day.
Pete Hoekstra, kind of interesting to hear the president making a statement today saying he was monitoring the situation 24/7. He left out the words even while he was on vacation. 30 seconds for your evaluation of the president's visit today to Louisiana.
He never gave President Bush that kind of benefit of the doubt when President Bush was dealing with Katrina. It's a double standard. The media has a double standard. He went down to Louisiana because Donald Trump went down. If Donald Trump hadn't gone, he wouldn't have gone either.
Gentlemen, we want you to stand by as we remind you, still to come on this program, you ought to hear what Andrea Tantaros is calling Fox News. She said it was a sex-fueled, Playboy Mansion-like type of work environment. Miranda Kahn will take a closer look at that later in our program. And when we come back, more with Pete Hoekstra and Jeff Crouere. Was there an ISIS attack in Roanoke, Virginia over the weekend? We'll talk about that when we come back.